to try to learn how to become a better basketball player. Everything. And so when you have that point, 20 years, it was an everyday process and trying to figure out strengths and weaknesses. For example, you're strong enough to be able to palm a ball and do the things that you need to do, doing that, right? It's a choice, right? You have other things, you have family, you have all these other things that you have to do. The game can't really be your number one priority. And so at a level that you didn't think was possible. And so running the studio, that's what I'm doing. I'm looking at them and I'm like, it's all right. Dad's gonna be all right. It'll be fine. It'll be all right. It'll be all right. It'll be all right. As a parent, you gotta set the example. You gotta set the example. This is another obstacle. This obstacle cannot define me. It's not gonna cripple me. It's not gonna be responsible for me stepping away for the game that I love. I'm gonna step away on my own terms. And that's when the decision was made that, you know what, I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
For whatever reason, society has taught us to be turned on by six packs, right? Sexy men with nice muscle. This is coming from a guy that used to lift weights and wanted to be Mr. Olympia, or women that have beautiful thighs and nice legs and nice toes and 36, 24, 36, beautiful face. Oh my gosh, she's so sexy, right? Or even when it comes down to business or folks who are talented, who speak so well, they're so eloquent with the way they put their words together. Oh my goodness, this is so crazy. But behind closed doors, in the world of business, I've seen so many talented people, so many folks who are brilliant, so many of them who are semi-geniuses, right? But behind closed door, they lack one thing, and that is willpower. Let me tell you what I mean by willpower. As crazy as it sounds, some of the most crazy, tough, intense, strong, brutally tough to the point that you can't do anything to stop them are those that on the outside don't seem impressive. Some of the most impressive people I've ever met. Because deep down inside, there's one thing they don't compromise. And let me tell you what that is. Again, willpower. What is willpower? Here's what willpower is. You'll hear a lot of times people say, you know what, I'm gonna try to give my best. I'll give my best, I'll see what'll happen. Yeah, I'm gonna try my best. I'll try to be at this thing. I'm gonna do my best. I'm telling you, I don't know, but I'm gonna do my best. We'll see. I'm gonna do my best and all this other stuff. There's always an out to their commitment. Yeah, but there's always an out. There's always a way to exit. So flight, and I don't have to fully commit to making it work, right? Always. Then you have a small group of people. These groups of people are like somebody you go on a date with, and you're sitting there, you're looking at this person, and then you start talking to them and you ask a question. Then you feel the depth. And you say, wait a minute, that was different. Where is this depth coming from? You sit down with somebody, you're at a lunch, and there's 4 or 5 people, there are new people you're meeting, one of the guys you knew, one of the girls you knew. And then somebody not talking, 30 minutes later, he opens his mouth and gives his thoughts on something. And you start peeling the onion, you start layers on top of layers of, wow, it's pretty intense, what she just said, or what he just said. Or you start doing business with somebody and casually the person says, no problem, I'll get that person's phone number to you by 2 o'clock today. 2 o'clock today, you get the phone number. You forgot about it, she didn't forget about it. Casually you do business with somebody and they tell you, next Friday at 4 o'clock, I'll get this email to you with the 10 things you requested. You forgot about it. Next Friday, 4 o'clock, you get the
okay. Yeah. It is not gonna be okay, bro. You can try your best. You can do as best. You can work as hard as you want. If you do not create results, you are gonna fucking fail, and it's gonna hurt. Yeah. It's gonna hurt bad. And don't let me be the one to love you passively. It's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
Nobody's coming. So I'm a big believer in the best day of your life is the day where you can really accept and realize that and smile because you know you want the ball in your court.
Yes.
If it's game 7 in your life and you're not Michael and you don't want to act like Michael Jordan, if you're not, no, give me the fucking rock. It's mine. Sorry.
Of course it's mine. Yeah.
It's my ball. I'm shooting.
Let's talk about the 4 Fs. Okay. Because this is kind of like your philosophy on like how to be a successful man in life.
Yeah, and look, I don't think it's anything new.
No, it's nothing new, but I just like the way you phrase it.
Yeah, so I say, there's a 4 Fs. There's fitness, finance, fighting, and f***ing. If you can get that shit down, you're gonna have a smooth ass life, bro.
I made in my mind as a young guy, I wanted to become world class at something. I just had to find out what the something was going to be. And the very first time that I walked into a Wall Street trading room, I knew this is it.
The ticker tape is rolling, the phones are ringing off the hook, people are screaming and shouting out orders, bodies are flying all over the place, and what looked like chaos to anybody else, I could see the natural rhythm in it. It was like I was reading a sheet of music, and I knew this is where I'm supposed to be. I kept coming back. I wore one branch manager down to the point that he says to me, Gardner, based on persistence alone, we're going to give you a shot. Man, I quit my job. That was all I wanted. I went home and I told my ex, you know what? You said I couldn't do it, but guess what? I started in 2 weeks. I was pretty pumped up. All the way up to the point. I show up on the appointed day and time, only to find out the gentleman who had made me the commitment had been fired the previous Friday. Nobody knew who I was, why I was there, and did not care. In California, when you quit your job, that means no unemployment insurance, no income, no benefits, and worse than that, the worst thing is now I gotta go home and tell this woman I don't have a job. If you don't remember anything else I say here today, remember this. Unemployment will not help your relationship. Somebody know what I'm talking about. I know you do. Think about it. We're a young family. We got a baby. She's a doctor who can't practice. I'm the breadwinner, and I quit my job thinking I'm going to Wall Street. Things got tough at home. Things got tense. I still had one shot left at the street. But before I can play it all the way out, I still got to take care of my family, which meant I did everything legal that I could to take care of my family and still pursue my last shot at the street. I cut grass, hauled rubbish, cleaned basements. I learned roofing. I learned painting. I did everything that I could to take care of my folks and still pursue my last shot at the street. Had a situation at home, things were tense. Had a problem, something happened, probably never happened to anybody in this room but me. I had one of those arguments with my ex that only ended because we both fell asleep. Now somebody know what I'm talking about. I know you do. We woke up in the morning, everybody's feet hit the floor, and guess what? We went at it again. The neighbors don't know what might happen, what could happen, what's going on. They call the police. The police come, they want to make sure everything is fine, take her over here, calm her down, talk to her, take me outside, calm me down, talk to me. And one of my friendly Berkeley police officers doing his job says, do you mind if I search your car? No, sir, go ahead, no problem. Searches the car, nothing. Then again, doing his job says, well, let me just run this license plate through a computer. That was it. With interest, I had $1,200 in unpaid parking tickets, all of which I'd accumulated the previous year trying to interview in downtown San Francisco. Double parking, illegal parking, late to feed a meter. An honest question would be, you knew you had the tickets, why didn't you pay them? Well, you know what? The position I was now in, having to cut grass to put food on the table, every dollar that came in the door, I had to make a decision. I could pay the rent or I could pay the ticket. I did probably what every man in this room would have done.
I found that nothing in life is worthwhile unless you take risks. Nothing. Nelson Mandela said, there is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that's less than the one you're capable of living. Now, I'm sure in your experiences in school and applying to college and picking your major and deciding what you want to do with life, I'm sure people have told you to make sure you have something to fall back on. Make sure you got something to fall back on, honey. But I never understood that concept, having something to fall back on. If I'm going to fall, I don't want to fall back on anything except my faith. I want to fall forward. I figure at least this way I'll see what I'm going to hit. Fall forward. This is what I mean. Reggie Jackson struck out 2,600 times in his career, the most in the history of baseball. But you don't hear about the strikeouts. People remember the home runs. Fall forward. Thomas Edison conducted 1,000 failed experiments. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Because the 1,001st was the light bulb. Fall forward. Every failed experiment is one step closer to success. You've got to take risks, and I'm sure you've probably heard that before, but I want to talk to you about why that's so important. I got 3 reasons, and then you can pick up your iPhones. First, you will fail at some point in your life. Accept it. You will lose. You will embarrass yourself. You will suck at something. There's no doubt about it. And I know that's probably not a traditional message for a graduation ceremony, but hey, I'm telling you, embrace it, because it's inevitable. And I should know. In the acting business, you fail all the time. Early on in my career, I auditioned for a part in a Broadway musical. Perfect role for me, I thought, except for the fact that I can't sing. I didn't get the job. But here's the thing. I didn't quit. I didn't fall back. I walked out of there to prepare for the next audition, and the next audition, and the next audition. I prayed. I prayed. And I prayed. But I continued to fail and fail and fail. But it didn't matter, because you know what? There's an old saying, you hang around the barbershop long enough, sooner or later you're going to get a haircut. So you will catch a break, and I did catch a break. Last year, I did a play called Fences on Broadway. Someone talked about it. Won the Tony Award. And I didn't have to sing, by the way. But here's the kicker. It was at the Court Theater. It was at the same theater that I failed that first audition 30 years prior. The point is, and I'll pick up the pace, the point is, every graduate here today has the training and the talent to succeed. But do you have the guts to fail? Here's my second point about failure. If you don't fail, you're not even trying.
So the question I'm asked most often is, with all the fascinating, interesting people that I get a chance to meet and study and spend time with as publisher and editor of Success Magazine, who are my favorites? And so what I want to do today is to tell you not just my favorite, but the one that had the most impact in my life and in the financial results and in the personal results of my life, having had the chance to spend time with this unique individual. And it came from meeting a man on a plane, and we got to talking, and he started to tell me about his grandfather who had just turned 100 years of age. So he was a centenarian, which I was fascinated because I'd never met a centenarian. And the story is that he had immigrated from what used to be the Soviet Union, which is now the Ukraine, to the United States with his family, and they grew up in abject poverty. They lived in the basement of another family's home his whole growing up years, and because they couldn't afford to sustain themselves, he couldn't go to high school, and so he never went to high school. Yet, he went on to become extraordinarily wealthy, well-respected, and very well-loved. And so for me, that's the trifecta of success. Wealthy, well-respected, and very loved. And so I asked if I could get his grandfather's phone number and if I could call him on the phone and see if I could inquire about doing an interview. And so he passed me his grandfather's number. I called him on the phone and finally got him on the line and said I would love to sit down and interview him and publicize his story and success. And he said, no, not a chance. He's a very, very private person and didn't want that kind of publicity. And so I switched my marketing mind and said, but we could document all the lessons that you learned of 100 years of wisdom, and you could pass it down to your children as a how to live the kind of extraordinary life you've proven, so that maybe great-great-great-grandchildren who never get a chance to meet you could learn the same lessons. And he seemed to get inspired by that idea. So I said, I will help memorialize that for you if we spend some time together. So I said, before we get together, I would ask that you write down everything you've possibly learned that contributed to your extraordinary life on paper, okay? Just prepare your notes for it. And he seemed very committed. He said, I'll give this some very diligent thought and I'll be prepared for our meeting. And so the day of the interview came and I was excited. I don't get excited about a lot of interviews because I have to do so many of them, but this one just had some sort of a mystique and magic to it. So I remember pulling up to the big iron gates as they slowly opened up. And then I start driving up the horizon. And as soon as I got over the horizon, I could see this palatial estate, which meant this guy was obviously wealthy. And I park my car and I go to the front door and I'm greeted by his estate manager and then shown to the library. And I walk in this room and it was absolutely breathtaking. Polished mahogany wood, 2 stories, wall-to-wall, floor-to-ceiling books. Rare books as well as contemporary modern, books maybe by many of you in this room, which was another indication that this is a man who, while never went to high school, is a serious student. So in the middle of the room were these 2 vintage wingback leather chairs, creased just perfectly like out of a Ralph Lauren catalog, and a marble table in the middle. And I even as I tell you the story, I could smell the leather of those 2 wingback chairs. So I took my seat and put my recording device down and my journals that I had come and the pens to wait for this deluge of wisdom that I was going to get from this man. And he eventually walks in and his skin is translucent, wrinkled. He's obviously old, but he's got this grace about him that obviously you don't acquire unless you've walked, for nearly 1 million hours on this planet. And when I shook his hand, I knew in that moment this was going to be something special. And so when he sat down, I said, so did you get a chance to write down all the wisdoms of 100 years of living? And he said, oh yeah, I did. And I said, well, where is it? Because I expected a big, thick, stack of documents. And he said, oh, I have it. And he reached into his breast pocket and said, it's right here. And he handed it over to me, and I took it and I opened it up and I read it in about 30 seconds because it was only 2/3 filled out. And I said, that's it? And I realized then that I was being disrespectful. And I said, well, how is all this? It's no way that all this is possible with what's just on this piece of paper. And he smiled knowingly and said, that's the problem, is that you could hand this piece of paper to a young man and they will open it and they will read it and they will think that they understand it, but they will disregard it and they will go on looking for more fanciful, complicated, seemingly mysterious ideas in order to capture their success. And he said it won't be until somebody arrives 100 years later when they're contemplating their life and trying to make sense of it that they will then reread this piece of paper and say to themselves, that was it. Everything you ever needed to know to be extraordinarily wealthy, well-respected, and very much loved appears on this piece of paper. And he could tell that I was stunned and stunted by this idea. And so he went on to explain, he said, look, because I never went to high school, I wasn't very smart. And I thought that was a disadvantage. And so every endeavor I pursued, I just had to find out what were those few things that made this work. And because I thought I wasn't very smart, I didn't change them. I didn't try to adapt them and make them my own. I just did them. And then because I did them over and over again, I got really good at them. And the thing that I thought was my disadvantage became my